What's going on, guys? This is Sam, and I'm super excited to already be talking about iOS 12 rumors with all of you. The first ever rumor for iOS 12 was released today by Bloomberg, and it's kind of crazy, so let's go ahead and jump in. So jumping right into things, this article was written by Mark Gurman, and the reason I wanted to bring that up is because Mark has this insane track record for predicting what Apple's going to do next. During the summer, he was talking about what the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 would look like prior to the release. He was talking about the HomePod prior to that being announced. Everything that he usually talks about tends to happen, which is really exciting because today's rumor is something that I think would be so beneficial for macOS and iOS together, because I think it's the beginning of macOS and iOS merging to one piece of software. The huge scoop in this article is this: macOS apps in macOS 12.14 and iOS apps in iOS 12 might become the same thing. So rather than having a Twitter app for your iPhone and iPad and then a completely separate and different looking Twitter app for your Mac, they would all be the same application that you would install cross-device, which sounds really cool and really good for Mac apps. So this would be huge, not only for developers that are making apps, but users like you and me who are using apps. And the example that the article uses once again is with the Twitter app. On iOS, the Twitter app is updated super frequently with updates all the time, but with the Mac Twitter app, it is rarely touched. It looks completely outdated. It's old. A lot of the newest features aren't even on it. So if this new cross-platform system went live in macOS 12.14 and in iOS 12, Twitter could bring all the newest features from its iPhone app to a similar looking app or a very similar app for macOS at the same time, without having a dedicated team just set aside to work on the Mac app and maybe have it updated more frequently than it is now. I would be so excited to see this happen because iOS apps tend to be updated a lot more frequently than Mac apps do, and if developers could bring these same features and changes to the Mac at the same time in an easier way, that would be so much better for users. And because Mac has a smaller user base, it would make sense to focus more on iOS and iPad and iPhone, which is what developers have been doing in recent years. But if developers could bring iOS apps to the Mac at the same time with the latest features and the latest changes and the latest bug fixes, that would be incredible. And I think that could really spur some excitement for Mac, which has been relatively not exciting in recent years. Like macOS High Sierra, for example, was a super small update. There were barely any features, and even at launch, it was still plagued by a decent number of bugs. iOS 12 changed a lot, and it was a little bit buggy, but that makes sense because they changed so much. macOS hasn't really been evolving in recent years, and I think this would be a really good first step to making macOS feel more fresh like iOS does every year. So if this happens in the future, it's going to be huge, it's going to be a really big deal, and it's going to change the app landscape on Apple devices. And another really important topic that Mark Gurman touches on in this article is a cross-platform operating system. It's no secret that iOS and macOS have been very different, but it seems like every year they get ever so slightly more similar. They share a lot of the same features and functionality. And although in the past Apple has continuously denied, no, we are going to leave iOS, and macOS, they will never be the same operating system, Apple's done that in the past and then changed their mind. And who knows, maybe in a couple of years, we'll see something called AppleOS. So when I heard about apps maybe going cross-platform, it reminded me of something that I saw around a month ago, which was this incredibly designed AppleOS Concept by Aurelian Salomon. I'll leave the link to this down below in the description. You should definitely take a look at it for yourself. This is insane. This is some of the most beautiful design work that I've ever seen. This is what the home screen would potentially look like on a Mac. You've got this ridiculous shadow and depth system if you scroll down. It also envisions a completely edge-to-edge MacBook. If this ever happens, I will be the first in line to buy this. It also has some crazy animations of how Finder would look. Finder is an application currently only limited to the Mac, but maybe it could come to the iPhone as well. Once again, I highly encourage you to check the entire concept out, but what I really want to focus on is this section. One operating system for all of your devices, and it shows what cross-device apps could look like, what a cross-platform operating system would look like. And I'm completely in love with this. I want to hear your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. If Apple did this tomorrow, would you be happy? Would you want something different? Or do you like the idea of one operating system running across your devices? For continuity, I feel like that would have to be the best option. There's also a couple of other really cool concepts in here. A new version of Safari where the title bar changes based on the dynamic content on the screen. There's also a really cool look of Siri and augmented reality. Until I saw this concept, I was not sold on a cross-platform OS. But if Apple could pull this off in the future, That would be incredible. I would love to see this announced at WWDC. The Bloomberg article also states that this is fluid. We don't know if we're going to see cross-platform apps by themselves happen in 2018. It could change. But there's also word on the street that this could potentially be announced at WWDC 2018. Apple, I'm still waiting on my invitation. If you want to have me there, I'd love to talk about this. But if that would even be the case, that is around 6.5 months away. So we have a very long time to wait before we even potentially start to hear more about, at least from Apple, cross-platform apps. It is a crazy idea, but I think it would be really good for developers and the end user as well. Also, if you're interested in reading that Bloomberg article, that will also be linked down below. I have honestly never been more excited for the future of iOS or macOS or maybe AppleOS. It sounds so exciting, so futuristic, and I can't wait to continue to cover this stuff throughout the year until they're both announced sometime in 2018. So subscribe for more of that if you want to see videos on iOS 12 and macOS 12.14. And of course, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, it does help me out if you take 1 second to drop a like down below. And if you'd like to help support the channel and buy a t-shirt or hoodie, that would be absolutely fantastic. You can get those over at iupdateos.com/merch. I've been Sam. I hope all of you are doing great, and I will talk to you in my next video.